In this video, we'll work on Ruth chapter 2, verses 19 and 20. But before we do this, I want to change one little thing in verse 18. Let's go back to verse 18. Oh, that was a sentence. She also showed Naomi the extra food that earlier she didn't eat. I think it'd be better to put that earlier at the end in a relative clause. Let's move this clause initial adverb to the end of the sentence. If we generate this now. Okay, Ruth also showed Naomi the extra food that earlier. Earlier is tagged as clause initial. Let's write a rule that will move a clause initial adverb to clause final position inside a relative clause. So that will be an adverb issue. Okay, move the position of certain adverbs. Let's do this rule. Okay, so we'll have a clause initial adverb. We don't care which adverb, any clause initial adverb. If that's in a relative clause, either restrictive or descriptive, then in the output structure, let's change it to clause final. Okay. Ruth also showed Naomi the extra food that she didn't eat earlier. That's better. And I will update the Word document here. Okay, 2:18:3. Let's move this. Let's move it there and here also. Okay, she and Ruth, so that's fine. Let's do the full verse. Okay, generate text is identical. Let's save this. And now we're ready for verse 19. Okay, Ruth's mother-in-law asked her, "Today, where did you glean?" Okay, we have the exact same situation again, but this time it's with a clause initial adverb occurring in a content question. So let's go to the same rule, and let's copy this. And now we'll say, instead of being in a relative clause, this is a I think it can be either content interrogative or yes/no interrogative. Did you go to school today? We would put today at the end in a yes/no interrogative. We can delete some of this. Okay. Generated text is identical. Generated text is identical. Okay, help. Okay, this is to help someone generically. Epaphroditus helped Paul for the people. Generated text is identical. Then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the owner, the field where she worked. The owner of the field where she worked. Okay, owner is semantically complex. It was inserted by a complex concept insertion rule. We can see that rule here. Complex object. Object here means noun. So this is a noun right there, owner. So this changes something like the person who borrowed the animal must pay the neighbor that owns the animal. The person who borrowed the animal must pay the animal's owner. So we insert the word owner, the animal's owner. And then the thing that was owned, this patient phrase, okay, so we delete this rule deletes the relative clause and then moves that phrase out into this noun phrase. So it becomes like the animal's owner. Okay, we need to tag this. Okay, so here's an example where you need to modify a rule that comes from the library. This is pretty rare. Occasionally you need to do it. But for example, for English, we need to set this as a prehead genitive and insert the word our owner marker. Okay, we need to insert it, mark it as prehead genitive because normally that job is done up here. Here in Rule 6, specify position of embedded noun phrases. If there's an owner marker, like right there, this rule tags it as prehead genitive. But this rule has already been executed. So by the time we get down here, we need to do it ourselves. So we insert this owner marker and tag it as prehead genitive. And let's see how that comes out. Then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the field where she works, owner. Okay, that's a tolerable sentence. It's not wrong, but normally when a noun in a Saxon genitive is modified by a relative clause, normally we use a Norman genitive instead of a Saxon genitive. We would say the owner of the field where she worked. So let's write a rule that will do that. So this will be, let's say it's triggered by noun phrases. Okay, so if a Saxon genitive is modified by a relative clause, we don't need to tag this clause, only relative clauses occur inside noun phrases. So let's tag this now, let's change it to a Norman genitive. Okay, this rule needs to do more work for us. We need to change this. Not only do we need to mark it as a Norman genitive, but now it needs to be a post-head genitive, and it needs to include the word of. The phrase initial of. Let's try that. And Ruth told her mother-in-law about owner of the field where she worked. About the owner. Okay, so we're getting closer. When this complex concept insertion rule inserted the word owner, okay, it was tagged as routine. Features changed from routine to generic. Okay, so we already have a rule. We're going to change this rule one more time. Here. Let's put this inside another noun phrase. And we'll put in a noun. And in the output structure we'll mark it as routine. And I don't know if this will cause us problems in other places or not. This will fix this sentence. But we'll try it for a while and see if we run into any problems. Okay, generated text is identical. Like I said, later we may need to change this. If we find out that we do, then we will. Ruth said, she said, that's fine. Okay, that's the last sentence. Generated text is identical. Let's save it and go to verse 20. Generated text is identical. Okay, alive. Okay, in TBTA we have this adjective alive, like John is alive, Mary is alive. When we use this to modify a noun, when we use it attributively, we need the word living. So let's change this. If it's being used attributively, then we need the word living instead of alive. Generated text is identical. Close, a close relative. We won't need this rule. Generated text is identical. Generated text is identical. That's the last sentence. Generated text is identical. I think in the next video we'll be able to finish Ruth chapter 2.